This one might be a little controversial. I'm starting to think, or rather, fact, I know in my heart that the governing bodies of boxing it's kind of making boxing a little rough. Now what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the WBO, the IBF, these four major governing bodies of boxing that kind of determine who's considered champions in boxing. Man, it's kind of making it rough for boxing and mainly the boxing fans to follow it. Like I say, boxing's probably my favorite sport, pound for pound, and it is so difficult to really keep up with who's ranked what and who's champions, who's real champions, yada yada. And it's because of this weird nature of boxing, because there's various promoters and there's various governing bodies who have various champions. And so, while Joshua has certain belts, Wilder has certain belts, and Spence has certain belts, and Terrence Crawford has certain belts. It makes it really hard to follow the sport, especially if you're a new fan, because you have no way of knowing like who's the actual champion. Now I'm saying all of this to say, back when PBC started, there was this rumor that they was gonna come out with their own championship belts. And a lot of fans was kind of against this, mainly because of the history that all the governing body belts have, and I get that. I respect that. I respect the lineage of the titles, but at the same time, it's gotten so ridiculous. It makes it so hard to follow that I think that PBC, more so than anyone else, but the PBC should go ahead and implement their own title, their own set of championships. And I think it would make things better for boxing as a whole. Now, why do I say that? Well, let's think of, a relevant other sport, which is MMA, and like say the UFC. Like say UFC and boxing, they're kind of like cousins, they're both combat sports. They both have various promotions or whatever. But MMA doesn't really have something like all these governing bodies who determine who are champions. Typically, if there's a promotion like the UFC has its own champions, and thus the people who fight under the umbrella are gonna get ranked under that umbrella, and you know it makes it a lot easier to follow. You know, PBC and boxing in general doesn't have that. All the rankings are gonna rank boxers across all of no matter who fights for what promotion or whatever, which is cool in concept, but it's hard to implement when it's so hard to make fights between different promotions. So I'm not lobbying to end the sanctioning bodies. If they want to exist, they can exist. But if you're gonna have a promotion, especially a major boxing promotion, and you got the talent, you got the fighters, I do think it's you should go ahead and make your own ranking system, so that it's easier for the fans to follow. And if every once in a while you want to do something with those governing body belts like the WBO, all that, like I say, I respect the lineage, but it's holding boxing back at this point. Like if there was, you know, if there was rankings within PBC, so, and I'm only harping on PBC because I feel like they have the most fighters with the most relevant names. And as such, if there was this ranking system, it would be easier to one make new stars because if some unknown guy sneaks into the top 10 and he faces a top 5 guy who has a name and he's able to beat him, people can kind of approximate that better than the way it currently is. Like the guy who's fighting Canelo, Aaron Rodgers. Nobody's ever heard of the guy, but if those promotions had their own individualized ranking system, with fighters within that thing, you might have heard of them, and you can more easily sell people when these people fight each other. The PBC has the most fighters, in my opinion, and as such, I think that as soon as humanly possible, they need to go ahead, come out with their own belts for the various weight classes, start pushing that concept, so that at least within the PBC umbrella, they'll know where fighters stand, what they're ranked. The fights will start to have more meaning. Like say Danny Garcia and Sean Porter had that fight. If that was for the PBC belt or whatever, if it was for a PBC belt, then you could say, okay, Sean Porter's the champion, and now Danny Garcia is ranked whatever, whatever. That makes for exciting news. That's what's exciting in all sports. And everybody kind of does it. And I know that fans, like I say, it's hard to get fans to accept change. But, the NBA championship deals with teams that are in the NBA. They're not going to take into account, teams that aren't under the NBA banner. And, look at what sports have the most issue with all this. It's sports that don't have it under their own banner, i.e., college football and boxing. Like I say, college football is exciting and there's a playoff, but it's hard to get it done because of all the varying conferences. It's hard to say, like, who's the best team or, because there's who's playing who and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, it's exciting to try to find the best in the world, but it's very convoluted and it's very hard to get it right. And in boxing, it's been a problem for a long time, especially right now. But with the way boxing's been growing, it's time to take that next step. And I hope PBC be the one to do it. Come out with your own titles, your own rankings for fighters that fight under your umbrella. It doesn't mean that you can't fight people from, that are non-PBC fighters. That can still happen. But in your own house, go ahead and set up your own thing. That could put you on the road to becoming kind of like the UFC. Like I say, they got plenty of fighters in Bellator, but they're not going to be ranked under the UFC banner because they don't fight under the UFC banner. Leave it to the fans and the analysts to come out with overall lists, accounting for people across all these various divisions. PBC, jump ahead of this and set up your own rankings for your own fighters. And it'll make it even bigger when you fight fighters from other promotions. Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford going to be a big fight. But, if you'd have presented Spence like, hey, here's the PBC champion. And, if ESPN presented Terrence Crawford as, hey, this is the ESPN champion. And you could, it plays into promotion. People like to associate people with things anyway. This will only help boxing. I don't care that it's a little controversial. You can still keep all those various governing body belts, but if you got a major promotion now, and really a lot of minor promotions do it anyway, but PBC should definitely do it. Like, come out with your own belts for each one of those weight classes so that you can rank people and you make it easier for the fans to follow. Anyways, that was just a little video, pseudo rant type deal. Till next time, people. Peace.